Hey everybody, welcome to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast, dedicated to raising awareness, sharing IBD stories, and offering support for those with Crohn's and colitis. Together, we can share knowledge, experiences, and help show the world the many faces of IBD. Hi everyone, I just want to take a quick second and introduce today's episode. We pick up today's episode right where we left off last week, and Rachel shares part 2 of this journey, talking about how nutrition and exercise have played an important role in maintaining her remission, how she's learned to retrain her gut to eat many of the foods she couldn't tolerate with Crohn's, and how she's learned to manage flares and symptoms that still arise, even being on medications and taking care of herself. We talk about balancing life and health and how important our IBD community is for those of us with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. So without further delay, here's part 2 of my conversation with Rachel Epplin-Rincker. So you are doing really well now. You're thriving, definitely in remission.
Yes.
And a big part of that is, I think, how you watch your diet now. You continue to do that, and a lot about with your fitness. So have you always, tell me a little bit about that part of your journey, and have you always been into fitness, or is this something you picked up after you truly got into remission?
No, I actually started running whenever I was 5.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Tiny.
I was a very hyperactive child. A lot of energy. I actually came from a family of runners. My dad still runs. My mom was a runner whenever I was a kid. My brother was a runner. And I had just a lot of energy. And my dad, was like, all right, we need to channel this. And so I started running with him, and I grew up, doing all the local 5K races, and all that fun stuff, and track and cross country. And I actually started weightlifting whenever I was 14. We didn't have cross country yet in my high school, and but there was like a little bitty weight room that we had. I went to a very small school, and it was really only the football players that were allowed to use it. But my brother, he was not a football player, but he liked to lift, and he said, Rachel, you can't just do nothing, like during this, so why don't you come lifting with me? And I was like, okay, I'm 14 years old. I had no idea. And the coach in there, he looked at me and he just goes, are you just here to stare at the boys, or are you actually going to work? and my brother, my brother was friends, with all of the guys in there. And I go, I see these guys every weekend. I don't care about them. I'm here to work. And he handed me a plan, and, and it was one of those very early bodybuilding plans, where it was 3 sets of 10 on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And I fell in love. I loved the lifting. I loved getting stronger. My running improved, very greatly. And running, I always say it's my true love, workout. It's something that I will probably never stop. I take breaks with it. I don't go nearly as far as what I did. I used to do 6 to 10 miles, like every day, but I'm like, I can't do that anymore. It hurts too bad. So, I still do run probably 5 to 6 days a week, but bodybuilding has really is really dominant, in my life. I'm hooked up with an amazing coach. I actually have my home gym, and we actually talked about this on Instagram. You asked, do you go to the gym or do you stay at home? And I built up a home gym because, and all these, all the fellow workout cronies will understand, whenever you're twisting your body, jumping, moving your body,
you cannot be held responsible for what happened.
Exactly. And accidents, gas, you can imagine it happens.
Yep.
Especially maybe if you don't
Better
eat.
to do it at home.
Better always do it at home. And there's never a close bathroom. in those gyms.
Yes.
And so
But at
I
home
built
there
up
is.
I built up my home gym, and that's where I am, and I love it. And I do it every day. And my GI doctor, she knows exactly what workouts I do, and they're all very approved by her. It's because, and I think, with the research is going, it's like the more active you can be, the healthier you will be, and therefore, you'll feel better. Your Crohn's will hopefully stay away, for the most part. So, and that's been my experience, and I absolutely love it, and I will never stop.
Mhm. Now, do you focus on different intensities? Because you hit the weights pretty hard and
Yeah.
running is definitely hard. Are you pretty intense with your workouts or do you kind of let your body guide you with how you're feeling?
I'm intense, and I
Mhm.
keep thinking, with the older that I am, I'm like, boy, that pain wasn't there 2 years ago. Where'd that come from? and,
My knee
you
is
know,
cracking
and
now.
I'll tell my coach that, and she'll be like, slack off just a little, please. I, and so I do, if I'm not feeling it, or if I'm not feeling well, or, if I'm sore, then, I'm trying to stretch more. I'm watching all your yoga stuff, and I'm like, would love to do a handstand like that. But, to get up to that, it bores me to death. I think just having more of an energetic, personality, where, like, whenever I try to do
Yeah,
yoga, I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I'd
yeah.
rather jump.
Your mind's going in too many different places.
Exactly. I'm getting better as I get older, but like, and actually how I will with the bodybuilding, there are some weeks, where you go as heavy as you can for lesser reps, and then you'll have weeks where you'll lighten the load and maybe just do
Mhm.
some more reps. And I found, kind of going back and forth between the two of those, doing different kinds of cardio, maybe not cardio every day. Um, that is really, really helped me. And
Mhm.
and again, it makes me feel so healthy, and like you can do anything.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
definitely gives that feeling.
Yeah.
How did you manage the working out through your pregnancies? Did you dial that back a little bit?
Well, and with yeah, with cervical issues, so whenever I got pregnant with the twins, I think the most I ever did was walk. Um,
Mhm.
Probably because I wasn't feeling great. And that's what I did, was walk. And then with Nathan, with cervical issues, it depends on the person, of course, because some people are fine to work out, and others are not. That it will shorten your cervix, that it will open, dilate you. And with me, it definitely dilated me. If I did any
Mhm.
sort of intense workout, or did anything other than walk. So with Nathan, I didn't do anything with him, just being too scared, to do
Mhm.
anything. With Michael, before I even knew that I was pregnant with him, that was whenever I started to really get into bodybuilding and, hit workouts and stuff. And so throughout my whole first trimester, that's what I was doing. And I
Mhm.
was fine. And then after that, though, I did prenatal yoga.
Mhm.
I walked. I had a 2-year-old. Of course, I was still, active. Yeah,
Active.
yeah. I mean, I was active. I was trying to sit down as much as I could, but I mean, I had a 2-year-old who was, also a very energetic 2-year-old, and so just keeping up with him. And I did still lift. It was only 5-pound dumbbells, but I was like, I wanted to maintain some sort of strength. But I
Uh-huh.
remember at 32 weeks pregnant with Michael, they checked me for dilation, and they said, "What kind of exercise are you doing?" And I said, well, keeping up with a 2-year-old, um, yoga and lifting 5-pound weights. And they just go, "Okay, you need to stop." They said, because you
Mhm.
you are starting to dilate a little bit, you are starting to shorten a little bit, so we just need you to stop. And whenever I stopped, everything, stayed fine. So
Oh.
unfortunately, I was not a fit pregnancy person,
Mhm.
and it is what it is. And
Yeah.
I would just say that if you can't be, especially if you're not feeling well because of Crohn's, or and issues with that, there is life after pregnancy, and you can go back to fitness and
Yeah.
and pick up right where you left off. So it's not, you haven't failed in any way.
Mhm. And you really did, because you did a bodybuilding competition, like a
Yeah.
fitness figure one was that
After
after
Michael,
Michael?
yeah.
After
Yeah, that was
pregnancy?
probably, what was he? Was he about 2? I think. I think I started training. Yeah, I started training for it right before he turned 2. I did like a 13-week prep, I think.
Mhm.
That was something, it's something on my bucket list that I always wanted to do. Since I loved
Mhm.
bodybuilding so much, I had no idea what it all entailed. The spray tan was the worst. If anybody, oh my goodness, I was orange for like 2 weeks. It was embarrassing, but everything that goes into it, the posing and the holding of the poses, and uh I loved my suit, but like you're literally glued, into that suit,
Yeah.
and you're hoping it doesn't come loose. And um and having somebody, judge your body, which didn't bother me. I actually really enjoyed it
Mhm.
because I was like, what can I work on? What can I be better at? And trying to look a certain way. It was a wonderful challenge.
It's an intense sport.
Very, very intense sport. Yeah, and I enjoyed it. And you know what? I would do more of them, but I just cannot get on board with the posing. It just feels very unnatural to me. Like
Well, because they are unnatural poses.
very unnatural poses. And I guess, and but also, you know what I found out, and this was the Crohn's and stuff talking. The diet to do one of those, it is a very
Mhm.
bland diet, and so that didn't bother me. But it was, you're starving. You're really starving,
Yeah.
and you're pushing your body, as far as you can. And that's okay, for a healthy person, because it's temporary. This is not what you
Yeah.
do, for life. But for me, it resulted in more abdominal pain, gas, bloating, more bouts of diarrhea. And I was just like, nah, nah, not for me.
Mhm.
Not for me. As long as I can body build, eat the way that I want to eat, look the way that I want to look, I'm great. And I don't need
Yep.
a
And you
judge.
gotta check it off. You already checked it off the bucket
And it's
list.
done. I always said I do not want to be 90 wishing that I had done a bodybuilding competition.
Although you could do one at 90.
Well, then I would make the news.
Might be the only one in the age group, but
Then I would win.
exactly. So before we leave the topic of fitness, how do you balance, because you mentioned even on Remicade, you still had some kind of mini flares, things like
Mhm.
that. Do you still get those? And how do you balance a mini flare or just maybe minor symptoms with being physically fit and working out?
um that's whenever I do make myself do the yoga, and just and be still. And I had a pretty bad flare. It was a little more than a year ago. It was last year. And it took a long time to get through it. And during that time, I just, I slacked off. I did not, twist, like my midsection. If something hurt, I stopped. If I was tired, I would stop. And it was just a lot of stretching, a lot of lighter weights. And and actually during that flare, I remember one day I was feeling all right, and I really felt like running. And so I went out running,
Mhm.
and I just stay in my neighborhood, but I have a great 3 mile um,
Mhm.
track that I do here, route that I do here in my neighborhood. And of course, I was the farthest away that I could get from my house. And I was like, uh-oh. I had never run so fast in my life. Which of course makes it worse because you're twisting
Yeah.
yourself. And so I'm
All that
stopping.
jostling
Oh my
and the
goodness. And I could
impact.
only think, please nobody else be out, because you're stopping and you're just standing there trying to collect yourself. That has happened to me a lot. Uh, which
Oh.
so I have vowed, maybe no running whenever you are having bouts of diarrhea or not feeling well, because that is the
Yeah.
worst.
Or just get a treadmill and put it right outside the bathroom.
I did do I there have yes. I did have a
You've
treadmill,
done
and
that?
there have been many times, like I said, I only work out at home because I have a bathroom in my gym, and you would hop off the treadmill and you would go, and then if you felt all right, you would get right back on.
And it kinda helps the stress too. It makes for a nice workout because you're not worried the whole time about,
Yes.
"Can I use this equipment? It's this far away
Yes.
from the bathroom. Can I do this or not?" Or
And
so
and this is another thing for me especially to think about, because I'm on the Remicade, and Humira is kind of the same. It's a biologic, and it lessens your immune system.
Mhm.
And so at the gym, you hear the horror stories about how germy it is and how disgusting it is. And I have learned in my experience, that I need to stay away, as much as
Mhm.
I can, from that kind of thing. Like I try not to touch railings, in like really busy places, or whenever I'm out with my kids, at a trampoline park, I don't jump in the ball pit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so that also does bring a lot of peace of mind. Yeah, that I'm not stressing out about, will I get sick? Will I not get sick? Stuff like that.
So what are some of the other things you do? Just kinda talking about flares and fitness, but what are some of the other things that you do when you have some of those symptoms to help alleviate or to let your body calm down? What tips do you have for managing a mini flare or just minor symptoms or a big flare?
Well, and this was probably during the last one, that I had. I did a lot of laying around, um, which is really hard to do, by the way, with two kids. Um, yeah, I go back to eating in a very bland, such a boring, way to be,
Chicken and
plain
rice?
chicken. Right? What is it? Is that the brat diet? I went on that, forever ago. Is it bananas, applesauce, rice? Oh, I went out of order. Bananas, rice, applesauce, toast. I don't know if you've ever been on that
Mhm.
one before.
I've not purposely, but I've been so sick that my diet has dialed down to those things
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
plain white toast,
Yeah.
kind of just subconsciously, I guess, in a way, you just start when you're feeling so bad, you gravitate towards those foods,
Yeah.
I think naturally.
You really do. And no, not a lot of seasoning, like absolutely nothing spicy. Um, lay off kind of the condiments and the fats and stuff like that. So I'll eat like that just for a bit. But I think, with me being so stable on the Remicade, I do tend to kind of get out of, a flare maybe a little bit easier than someone else. So,
Mhm.
I'm lucky in that way. But it's hard. And especially, I was talking about with my kids, the last one that I had, I would lay, on the couch, and they would be like, "Mom, what are you doing? Are you sick?" And
Oh.
I'm kind of, I'm struggling with, explaining it to them to not scare them. And they know
Mhm.
that I have Crohn's, and they know that, it has to do with my gut, and stuff like that. And they know that I don't eat certain things because it will irritate me. And they know
Mhm.
that, but I don't think that they actually get it yet. But
Well, and they're so young, that's kind of hard to if you were to explain the full gravity of it, I'm not sure they're so little, it's
they
hard enough for an adult to understand
exactly
what it
they
is.
would be terrified. They would be like, "Oh my gosh, like mom is sick." But It is kind of funny though, especially my oldest. He knows what a colonoscopy prep is. He's seen me do it so many times that he's like,
Mhm.
okay, don't bother mom for a few hours.
She'll be in that side of the house.
And also, the good part, if somebody is worried about them having Crohn's, or if their husband has Crohn's, and if they have children, I think the likelihood, it is so low to actually pass it
Mhm.
on. Because I know that I was really worried about that, and my GI doctor was like, I don't want to give a percentage that I'm not completely sure, but it's a slim chance. I know that it can be passed down through generations, but she was like, don't worry about that. And the good part is that if you think that your child is having symptoms of it, you'll know what to do. And they won't have, hopefully a bad experience, or a prolonged, experience like I had, like we had.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And it's so multifactorial. It's not just genetic. It's
No.
not
It's
fully genetic, because there's people like my family, nobody has it, and then there's families where multiple people have it. It's just one piece, like any
right.
other chronic illness or whatever it may be, that there's so much that goes from your environment and everything else that plays into it.
It's
I think
just
we just don't know yet.
no, yeah, we don't know. And why is it so prevalent, in first world countries, and not prevalent, in poorer countries? It's just, it's kind of, it's baffling. And they don't know. The only other person in my family that had it was my great uncle.
Oh,
Who,
wow.
yeah, he and
Who knew?
yeah, and so what they said, they were like, that's way too far removed, this, we don't treat you like a genetic. It was my mom's uncle, and she said what she always remembered about him, he was very tall, very thin, um because he didn't have like a Remicade drug. I think that only he took prednisone. And she said that she just remembers whenever she would see him that he would be in the bathroom multiple times a day. And
Aw.
and didn't really eat much, but this was back in the 60s and stuff,
Yeah.
whenever he was suffering, but he lived a very long life, and I don't know, but we they suspect that he had Crohn's. He didn't talk about it, so that's all I know about him.
Especially being a man, and,
Yeah.
they don't talk about
No.
most men don't talk about
No.
this, even less than the women.
No. Because it's an embarrassing disease, but it does give you a really wicked sense of humor.
It does. Yeah, you said your boys and your husband have,
Oh,
gotten
I
used to
get
your
I get
humor,
blamed
and
for everything.
I like to, I'll joke with my husband when he eats something bad, I'm like, "Oh, are you experiencing Crohn's?"
That's what I always say too. Or if my husband's just like, "Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that," and I go, "Oh, poor baby." I'm like, "Oh no, no
Exactly.
one can throw this up in my face."
How funny. So I want to talk a little bit about food, and before we do that, I'll just kind of share, because as you were talking about the bland diet that you were eating,
Hmm.
just like bananas, rice, and things
Yeah.
like that, I had totally forgotten until you just mentioned it a second ago, but it popped into my head. There was one time I was so sick and I didn't know what to do, and I just kind of threw my hands up, and I went to the store and I bought tons of baby food.
Oh
And
gosh.
I was like, I'm gonna eat baby food.
How did that work out?
It wasn't very good. I think I did it for a day or 2, and then I was like, "What am I gonna do with all this baby food?" So I took it to, I went to the food bank and dropped
Okay,
it
well,
off,
yeah,
so
there's something good came out of it. Okay, I have never thought about eating baby food before, but it makes complete sense.
I figured it's cooked, it's blended up,
It's
it's easy to
Yep.
digest.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. The things that us
So
cronies have had to go through, I swear.
I know, and just the tracks that our minds go down because when you're just you're stuck and
Yeah, if you're
desperate that it's like,
desperate.
I'll do it. And say, so you had a pretty bland
Mhm.
diet, when you kinda went through your
Mhm.
pregnancies or when you go through a flare, but you have a pretty wide variety now. So talk to me a little bit about that journey, how you've kind of expanded your diet, what you do now, and how you find relief with
Yeah.
what you eat.
And you know what I find fascinating about Crohn's or an ulcerative colitis, IBD, um, is that we are all so different and we can all tolerate different foods. What works, like I know that you love butter. And if I
Mhm.
were to eat a large amount of butter, I would be doubled over. You know, it's just it's how my disease reacts. But then I um I can do vegetables and you can't. I
Yeah,
just yeah, I mean
and
I
I'd be
find that
doubled over.
yeah, I find that fascinating. I just love it. But so
I do too.
yeah, and you know with the bland diet, I love to cook. You know, I love to cook. I love like new recipes. And I was like, okay, this is not, I cannot live like this for the rest of my life. You know, just doing this. And I know that
Mhm.
my husband could not live like this, you know, for the rest of his life. And so I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to see if I can retrain myself because this was after you know, I'd been on Remicade and I'd been stable and I said, okay, let me just try some things. And I love vegetables. My dad had a garden you know, for as long as I can remember. I grew up on vegetables. We always had a vegetable, you know, and fruit and stuff like that. And I was like, I really miss it. And so I would start with like you know, broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, radishes, lettuce, all of the good things. And I would do very small amounts like every day and see how I would react. And at first it wasn't good, but I was like, well, you know, I'm going to keep going because I just could not imagine a life without asparagus and salad.
Without
and and I, I that sounds kind of pathetic, but um I
it does
just
not. As someone who I enjoy those things, but I haven't eaten them, but
right.
I do actually miss them, so I understand what you're saying
Yeah.
of a life without vegetables sounds sad.
I know. I know. And I mean, to maybe some people, a life of just white bread and rice sounds wonderful, but to me, no, I don't like that.
So how much would you eat every day during this retraining process? Was it like a bite or a couple
No, it was
bites?
more than that. It was probably a very small side, you know, of it, and you know, eat whatever I wanted of it, and then get rid of the rest. Um, and you know, I would notice like asparagus is great. Um, that one sits completely perfect with me. Radishes are good. Um, broccoli and cauliflower, you know, kind of hit
Mhm,
and miss. So it's not that all vegetables agree with me, but it's just that, you know, I can eat some in small amounts and be perfectly fine. Um,
mhm.
and other ones like tomatoes, I'm going to eat tomatoes no matter what. You know, especially homegrown tomatoes, and I'm just going to take the
Oh,
consequences, you know.
mhm.
But the ones that absolutely do not agree with me no matter how hard I have tried, mushrooms,
Mhm.
those are a disaster every time. Spinach, I cannot do
Mhm.
spinach, and arugula, which is weird because other lettuces like butter lettuce and red leaf lettuce are fine, but arugula is not.
And butter lettuce, I actually tried that for a while because it's known to be a lot more tender, a lot easier to
That's,
digest,
I was
and
just getting ready to say, I think because it's a softer lettuce, whereas arugula and spinach are more hard. Um, Large amounts of bok choy, you know, are bad. Uh, but you know, for the most part though, I do tolerate other vegetables, and what I did, I would just consistently eat them every day, retrain myself until I got to the point where it was like, oh, I can eat this. I enjoy it. I don't hurt, and it took, gosh, that process probably took a few years.
Did it?
Yeah, just being really, really consistent, but I was determined to eat my vegetables.
Yeah. You're giving me hope because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so if I can have like a green bean.
Right. Oh, green beans, that's another one of my best friends. Yeah, green beans and asparagus are the two that I do very well with. Yeah.
So the next time my husband makes asparagus, I'm going to eat one.
Eat one and see how you feel and if it comes back out.
I think the limiting, that's what is the hard part for me because I love food.
Uh-huh.
I really love food
Yeah.
so much. And so I'll eat like an asparagus. It's like, oh, it's so good. Let me eat just,
Right. Let
50
me
of
eat
them.
more. I know. And I've been there, because there's nothing like air fried broccoli. It's just, or Brussels sprouts. I mean, they're just wonderful. And you can pop them in because I think they're just so savory, and they, satisfy.
Mhm.
And no, I have to just come back with that one. And
I'm going to have to cook one Brussels sprout at a time. That's how I can do it.
maybe two, and then
Maybe
cut them in
2.
half, and then you think you're getting 4.
Yes.
And I don't know how you do with fruit, but I also had to do
I
the
do better with
yeah,
fruit.
I found the berries. Berries are
Mhm.
good. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. But again, I don't eat a very large quantity of them because they have a lot of fiber, but I do love the berries, but the fruit that I absolutely cannot tolerate are like the harder fruits like apples,
Mhm.
pears. I don't know if that's the same with you, but if I eat an applesauce is okay because that's cooked down, but a raw
Yeah.
apple or pear or cantaloupe, any sort of melon really, it is pain. And I think because I don't know if it's the hardness of it or the fiber or what, but gosh, I haven't eaten an apple in so long and I miss them.
That's interesting because melons are one thing that I would actually do okay. Like,
Wow.
I could eat a cantaloupe or I could eat a melon
Oh,
and I'd be okay.
I'm
So
jealous of that.
strange.
Yeah. I just I cannot do it. I just can't. And
Yeah. I'm jealous of the broccoli.
so I'll take my broccoli. Yeah, but and again, that was like I didn't just eat, like a couple pieces of apple, realize that it was pain, and then I stopped. I tried to do it over and over again, and until I realized, okay, this isn't getting better, whereas with the broccoli, asparagus, green beans, it did get better, to where I could
Mhm.
tolerate it, but I sometimes you just have to give up. And the same with legumes,
Mm.
lentils. Oh no, no, forget about it. And even my biggest culprit was peanuts and peanut butter because I had never, peanuts are a legume too, and I would eat peanut butter, which I love, and I would
Yeah.
just
Who
feel,
doesn't
yeah,
love peanut
exactly. I
butter?
would just feel horrible. But I did switch to almond butter, and with the ingredients of nothing but almonds and salt, and I tolerate that perfectly. So
Oh,
I just
wow.
had to replace one addiction with another addiction. So
Mhm.
I don't know, and yeah, I just curse Crohn's, whenever that stuff happens.
I do too. And how do you do with sugars, with desserts and sweet things?
Oh, that's one thing I will never give up in life. I know that you have, and I don't know how you do it.
For me, I had to do all or nothing. Like, if because I know you can moderate a little bit,
Right.
I can't tell myself I'd be okay if I had, like, a cookie. I think my Crohn's could
But no one
tolerate a
stops at one
cookie.
cookie.
Yeah, I certainly don't. So, I'm a little bit, I I don't have that control. I think I have a bit of a food addiction
Well, and
problem.
and what I kind of did, I mean, I still do eat like bakery sweets, like if I would go to a really great
Mhm.
local bakery to where I know that they're making things in-house, from great ingredients, I do okay with that. But with like the store-bought stuff, you don't know what's in that. You don't know how long it's been made.
Mhm.
I do not tolerate that at all. We,
Mhm.
are the Blues, won the Stanley Cup, and we're big Blues fans. And
Mhm.
my kids in the store, those big cookie cakes that they sell with the
Oh,
icing
yeah.
and stuff, they were selling, like Blues cookie cakes. And of course, my kids were like, oh my gosh, we still want one. And this was during the first round of playoffs. And I said, okay, if they win the Stanley Cup, which, I said, I
Mhm.
will get you a cookie cake, which by the way, I love those cookies. And
Yeah.
they won. And the next day, my oldest said, Mom, cookie cake.
Cookie cake.
And I was like, okay, bought it, had some. Ugh, bad, bad.
Oh.
I don't regret it though. It tasted good. It did taste good, but
Exactly.
what I found with baked goods is as long and if I make them myself and I can, determine the ingredients, lower the sugar, lower the fat, I tend to do much better with that. But I do very much limit that. Normally
Mhm.
dessert is fruit, something sweet like that. But I do have to have my chocolate though every day. I will not give that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just won't.
Do you have just a little piece or
It depends on my mood. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's a lot. But I've noticed that
there's a lot of health benefits to chocolate.
tons. That's what I tell myself. And normally, if you're eating a good quality chocolate, um, I do great with it. It doesn't bother me. And I do limit though, the ice cream, stuff like that. Of course I do
Yeah.
because that never goes over well. But honestly, if I want it, and if it's a weekend or something special, or if I'm at a wonderful ice cream place, I'm gonna eat it, and I'm just gonna put up with the consequences later and know that it will pass and know, okay, well, I won't do that again for a while.
Yeah. I think we've all, reached those
Oh, of
points
course.
before.
Of course, because it's, you have to, I know that, with Crohn's, you do have to restrict, but I mean, that's just not fun and it's not doable. So
We gotta have a vice here and there.
exactly.
I think that's, definitely a great advice to focus on the quality. I think that definitely makes a difference of just knowing what the ingredients
Hmm.
are and what you're eating.
Yes.
And I know I've got a couple of takeaways. I'm gonna see if I can retrain myself to eat a cauliflower.
Oh, that one.
See
I
what
would stay away
happens.
from the cruciferous ones for a while until you've got
I
asparagus
know,
and
but I
green
like
beans. Oh, I
cauliflower.
know. It is so good. It is so good. Or maybe
Miss it.
just do like a mashed cauliflower, and doctor it up a little bit or something and just put a
Mhm.
little bit there on your steak and then it would be wonderful.
Just a dab. So, as we get ready to wrap up a little bit, I wanna talk about advocacy a little
Mhm.
bit, and you've been sharing parts of your IBD journey on your
Mhm.
Instagram, and so what compelled you to actually start talking about Crohn's and IBD and start sharing your story?
Well, I think whenever I joined Instagram and I would see, like the hashtag Crohn's Warrior, hashtag, Crohn's and Remicade, um, I found a community like I had never found one before. Um, because
Mhm.
it's like I'd had this disease for so long, but I really had never met anyone with it or had other experiences to compare against my own. And as I read theirs, I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, that's me, And so it just
Mhm.
makes you that much braver because now you're a part of a community to where you have all these similarities, but also, big differences, like within our diet and the medication and how we choose, to handle, our disease. And it just makes you a lot braver. It makes you not ashamed to have it
Mhm.
because you have all these other people that have your back. um and also I think I think that as you get better, to where if you would just look at somebody like me or you, we don't look sick, and we're not, for the most part. I would say that
Yeah.
I'm in a very healthy place right now. But
Yeah. I agree.
but I also have this disease that will never go away. And I don't think that people look at it seriously whenever you are healthy, or they just kind of brush it off. And it's like, no, this is not a disease to be brushed off. This is a disease that needs to be upfront, and talked about, so that way people who have, the symptoms like I had, and that went undiagnosed, for so many years, that maybe they can connect dots, and push to get, that diagnosis.
Do you think talking about IBD and sharing and advocating a little bit has shaped your view of Crohn's and colitis overall?
Yeah, I think it seems like the more I talk about it, the more I hear other people's stories. And also
Mhm.
I think about, especially young, like young kids, that have the disease. I don't want them to grow up to be, ashamed of it. And so I think the more out we are, and maybe the more normalized, it is, and that, okay, this is a disease that you're dealing with going to the bathroom. Um,
Mhm.
it is a serious thing, and it needs to be taken seriously. And I don't want to be, like, oh, too embarrassing, can't talk about it, or something like that. And I think that the more of us that stand up, um, the more, hopefully, this disease, I hopefully will be cured. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see if that
Fingers
happens in our
crossed.
lifetime. But in order to make that happen, it needs to be, out in the open, and people need to know about
Yeah.
it.
It definitely does. It's very important,
Yeah.
and it's been exciting to see even in just the short time. I mean, I've had Crohn's 13 years, and even just in that time, it's just been leaps and bounds
Yes.
different as far as how many
Definitely.
people are talking about it
Definitely.
and coming out of the woodwork,
And
so
the medication part of it, even because some of the biologics, they're relatively new. And I know I don't know the name of it, but there's one that is designed, it's an infusion, just for Crohn's.
Oh, wow.
So they're developing more medications. They're finding, new and better ones, to help combat this. I know, I am very lucky that I have not had surgery. And I
Mhm.
really think that I have not had surgery because of these medications that have, gained in popularity, and have had more and
Yeah.
more research, in the last few years. So in that way, I mean, it's kind of exciting, to see this.
Yeah, it really is, and it's funny because 'cause I've had, it's not really funny, but I've had a couple of different GI doctors over the years just because of circumstance.
Hmm.
I got switched from a regular GI to a Crohn's
Hmm.
specialist, and then he moved away, but when I went to my Crohn's specialist, and I got him about a year or so ago, but now he's moved, but I remember talking with him and telling him, like, "I'm not on medications right now," and whatnot, and he's like, "Well," he's like, "You'd be interested to know that there's been so much research and so many new drugs coming out. There's a lot of different options
Yeah.
now," and it was just something I hadn't even heard,
Whereas in the
so
past it was like prednisone and that was it. Which is,
yeah.
like the devil drug, or azathioprine, which didn't do anything for me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so and oh, and and the other thing, you brought up a good point. You switch from a regular GI to a Crohn's specialist. That is very, very important. If you have access to a GI doctor that only specializes in IBD, um, go with that doctor, because
Mhm.
they only look at IBD, and that is what their specialty is. And therefore they're up to date, on the newest research, the newest medications. and they only deal, with people like us. And that's what my GI doctor is. And, I trust her. And, I think with a regular GI, that's too much, it's not specialized enough.
Yeah, because they're not looking for all those extra intestinal manifestations that crop up or
Exactly.
what could happen and all the little nuances that
Exactly.
come with IBD.
Yes.
So I have talked your ear off quite a bit. Is there and we've covered quite a bit. Is there
Yeah.
anything that I have not asked that you wanted to share?
No, I think that we did a pretty good job there. Talking. But, again, I'm so thankful, that we found each other, and, and your podcast, and that, you're reaching people that live all around the world. And I think that it's wonderful. And I'm just so glad to be a part of this community.
Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of this community too. I say it every time, but we truly have a really incredible IBD community.
We do.
So if people want to follow you, I've talked about your Instagram. I've mentioned it. Where can they find you online?
It is at Rachel Fit Mom. And that's about all I do is Instagram, actually. I'm not on Facebook or anything.
Instagram is great. So thank you so much for talking with me. I truly enjoyed it. We had a ton of great information that you shared, and I truly appreciate you opening up and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you for listening to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have an IBD story, either as a patient or a family member that you'd like to share as a guest on this podcast, or if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me an email at crohnsfitnessfood@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my Crohn's journey, follow me on Instagram using @crohnsfitnessfood, or visit my blog for in-depth articles about my struggles and victories with Crohn's through diet, fitness, and lifestyle at www.crohnsfitnessfood.com. And finally, remember, be strong, be grateful, and be the warrior that you are.